Welcome to Quantum Leap Growth. Today I'm taking you with me to the Find Your Flow Festival in Basel, powered by Unity. It's an amazing festival all about personal growth, mindfulness and conscious living. A weekend full of inspiring talks, workshops, music, and bringing together some of the most impactful teachers, speakers and authors in the field of transformation. We will get to hear from incredible minds like Laura Marlina Seiler, Tobias Beck, Deepak Chopra and Sergio Bambaren, and many, many more, all sharing their insights on how to live with more purpose, flow and authenticity. Beyond the stage, there's a vibrant community vibe with yoga sessions, breathwork, live music and many, many more. I will show you around, share some of my favorite talks and moments and hopefully give you a real feel for the energy.
I'd like you to think about the feeling that you have when you see a cute dog, if you're a dog person. Or the feeling that you have when you see a really cute cat, if you're a cat person. And what is that feeling? Think about that feeling for a moment. Open your eyes. That feeling is love, isn't it? Raise your hand if you would agree. That's love, right? Love is the highest vibration that I know of. Pure unconditional love. Raise your hand if you have ever heard that phrase, ascended being. You heard that phrase? To become an ascended being. Raise your hand if you'd like to become an ascended being. Raise your hand. Okay. Guess what? That's all about unconditional love. It's about developing your own ability to love others unconditionally. And what does that mean? It means that you love without any expectation. It means that you love without reserve. It means that you love in spite of what someone may look like, or what size a person is, or what color a person is, or what kind of proclivities a person might have. It means to love without any conditions. What I would like you to do right now is I'd like you to pick a random person, like the person next to you, and I'd like you to look that person in the eyes for a moment. Okay? Go ahead. Don't be shy. This is Switzerland. And I'd like you to tell that person from your heart, I love you. Some new relationships may be forming here. But from your heart, look that person in the eyes and say, I love you. Isn't that a beautiful thing? You know, when I was young, 15 years old, I was a runaway, and it was a very difficult time in my life. And I had a teacher once that during that time, out of the blue, she looked at me and she said, I love you. And I melted. And I said, I love you too. And I will never forget her for those simple words that she spoke to me all those years ago. If I live to be 1,000,000 years old, I'll never forget her. Those simple words are so powerful and can change the world and will change the world. And I'm here to tell you about the heart. And the biggest blockage that this world has to transformation and to becoming a world that operates on unconditional love. You see, thousands of years ago, the ancients believed that the heart was the seat of the soul and the source of love and creativity and romance, and they believed that the heart was the core of our being. Now, in the West, Western medicine, Western biology, we don't really talk about any of those ancient beliefs, do we? If you pick up a biological textbook in any Western country, you won't read anything about any of those ancient ideas. But now, those of you that attend these events know that even though they knew that the heart contained gray matter and white matter, probably going back 100 years or more, it wasn't until 1991 that a paper was published talking about what the heart really is and what those neurons really are. There are 40,000 neurons in the heart. The heart has its own completely separate nervous system, separate from the brain. They communicate, but they're separate. And the ancients believed these things about the heart because they saw what went on. They knew that sometimes we feel like our heart is going to break, right? Raise your hand if you can remember a time in your life when you felt like your heart was going to break, like there was an elephant sitting on your chest, like you couldn't breathe, maybe you felt like you were choking, you were really deep in grief or someone was really hurting you. The vast majority of us have felt that. The ancients felt that too. So they knew that there was something unusual going on with the heart, because you wouldn't get a headache or a knee ache when you were feeling that way. You'd feel heartache. But they also observed something else. They also knew that when they were watching someone sing or perform beyond their own natural ability, that they would feel it in their heart. And it's the same today. If you're listening to someone that is performing in some way beyond their natural ability, you'll feel like putting a hand over your heart. And if you look around, you'll see other people that will have their hands over their hearts, and they'll have maybe a tear in their eyes because their heart is resonating, vibrating with the heart of that person that's performing. Raise your hand if you've experienced that. Yeah. My wife shows me videos from Britain's Got Talent and things like that. These sometimes really amazing people, and you'll see that there, and it always happens to me too. Well, what we now know is that over 90% of people in this world have put up a wall around their heart. Now that wall is made of energy. It's like a force field. We call it the heart wall. It's made from layers of emotional baggage. When you feel like your heart is going to break, if that happens to you more than once or twice, the subconscious mind will start to build a wall. And that wall is layers, like the layers of an onion. It's a protective mechanism to keep your heart from breaking. But the problem is, when you have this wall, it becomes much more difficult for you to give and receive love. It becomes much more difficult for you to really create the perfect life, the perfect blueprint that lies within your heart for the life that you're capable of living. My wife is here. Stand up, Jean. Many years ago, we had an amazing experience. She woke me up early one morning, which never happens, and she asked me if I would help her to decipher this dream that she had had. And as I was trying to help her decode this dream, suddenly I had what I can only describe to you as a waking vision, where the room that I was in, that we were in, the hotel room, was no longer there, and instead I was seeing this incredibly beautiful hardwood floor. And as I'm seeing this hardwood floor, and this lasted for several minutes, by the way, my wife's heart, I knew somehow, was underneath this floor. Now, I had no idea what this meant. She had no idea what this meant either. And so we prayed, asked for some guidance, and started trying to figure this out. Using muscle testing, trying to get answers out of her subconscious mind. And what we found was, when she was 2 years old, her subconscious mind had begun to build a wall around her heart. She was born into a very volatile family. Her father was kind of a rageaholic, good man, but nobody ever knew who he was going to blow up at or when, so it was very uncertain. Raise your hand if you grew up in a house like that. Anybody? Okay, some of you can relate to that. And so she began to build this wall around her heart. And then as things went on in her life, she added more layers to this wall, more layers, until we began to figure this out. And we asked her subconscious mind if we could start to remove these layers, and the answer was yes. Now, she battled with depression and anxiety, and it was easy to feel negative emotions, harder to feel positive emotions, and she never really felt like she belonged. With any group she was ever with, even friends, girlfriends that she'd known for many years, she never really felt like she belonged, like she was expendable, kind of an extra person. We asked her to start removing these layers, and the answer was yes. It took us about 2 weeks to remove layer by layer from her wall, a wall around her heart. And when that last layer was removed, and suddenly her heart was open, all of a sudden, she had this feeling like she belonged. She happened to be with a group of women that she had known. It was a big shift for her, a huge shift. Well, in the very beginning, I thought, my wife has had some odd things. So she is probably the only person in the world that has this. But no, about over 90% of people have put up a wall. Now, you can see this in the world that we live in. You can see the results of having this wall. Because you see, this is the brain that is in our heart. That is the brain that feels. And that's why if you're really feeling joy, you feel it here, or if you're feeling really hurt, you feel it here in this brain. This brain feels nothing. And that's why, here it is, and we're in the year 2025, and we're still using war as a way as an extension of politics, right? We're still dropping bombs on people, and we're still talking about war. War should be a thing of the past. It shouldn't exist anymore. But you see, to this brain, war makes sense. To this brain, it does not. 90% of the people in the world are operating from this brain. To change this world, we have to take down this wall. Makes sense, right? It's very interesting, when this wall is taken down, things that happen. One of the very next people that I worked on that had put up a wall was a nurse. She came in to see me because she had rather severe neck pain. It was about a 9 on a 0 to 10 scale. She'd seen a couple of other doctors for this. They hadn't been able to help her. So she came in to see me, and as I was talking with her, she told me that she was a nurse. She was 38 years old. She had not dated in 8 years. And she was never going to ever date again. She was going to be single the rest of her life and die single. And she was an attractive woman, and I said, well, how did you arrive at this way? Why do you feel this way, that you're going to be alone your whole life? She said that 8 years before, she was really deeply in love with this guy that dumped her, broke her heart, and that was it. She was done dating. So, as you might imagine, she had put up a wall around her heart. So I started working on her. We figured out what these 3 layers were, these 3 emotions. By the way, they all had to do with the breakup from 8 years before. And when I cleared the very last one of those emotions, her heart wall was gone, and suddenly her neck pain was completely gone. Went from a 9 to a 0 instantly. So she left my office feeling fantastic, so grateful, and didn't come back for about 3 months. And I'll always remember seeing her in my hallway. I remembered her because she was the only celibate woman that I had ever met in my life. And I saw her in my hallway and I said, "Hey, how are you? What's going on?" And she said, "You know, my neck has been fine since I was here." But she said, "You cleared that heart wall for me, and that really works." She said, "About 2 weeks after I was here, I found out my childhood sweetheart has been living right around the corner from me for almost 8 years. And we're dating. And we're in love. And I think he's going to ask me to marry." And I thought, wait, aren't you celibate? But no. So, raise your hand if you feel like you could use more love in your life. Anyone? Okay. Raise your hand if you feel like your marriage could improve, your partnership could improve. Raise your hand if you're single. Raise your hand if you'd like to find a partner. Okay? It isn't just about that. It's a very interesting kind of a thing. It's a cosmic kind of thing. You know, one of our practitioners told us recently, her sister called her. Our sister had been single for 9 years, divorced. And she had never allowed her emotion code practitioner sister to work on her. And one day she called her up and said, "Listen," she said, "it's been 9 years now, I've been alone, I'm tired of being alone, I don't want to be alone anymore. Will you come work on me and see if I have some emotional baggage?" And so she did. So the two of them spent the day together and released that wall around her sister's heart. Neither one of them told anybody what they were doing. And, you know, they just spent the weekend together. On Monday, guess what happened? The phone started to ring. Who do you think was calling? Guys that had known her from before. She hadn't gotten a phone call in a long time. But you see, when that heart is open, suddenly that energy goes out into the world. That pure essence of who you are can go out into the world. And then things can start being attracted into your life that you really want. It's not only that, it's not only about love. There's something else going on with the heart. You know, during the years that I was in practice, during the last 10 years that I was in practice, most of the people that I saw as patients had been told that there was really no hope for them in Western medicine at all. No cure for them. Nothing could ever be done. And I used to do an examination on these patients. And I would test the balance of all the organs and glands and chakras and meridians. And it was not unusual to find all the organs and glands imbalanced. Many of the meridians, many of the chakras. Sometimes with these people, I would just do one thing. I would just clear their heart wall. By the way, all of these really sick people had a heart wall. All of them. And I would clear that heart wall and then re-examine them, and I would inevitably find that 80% of all those organs and glands and chakras and meridians were now balanced. Isn't that interesting? There's communication going on from the heart to all the parts of the body. I think the most important thing you can do is find out if you've got a wall around your heart, an invisible wall, and get rid of it. Because it can help your love life, but it can also help you physically, and it can also help you in other ways. There was a woman that brought her son in to see us once. He was 9 years old. And she noticed trouble with him when he wouldn't turn in his homework, even if he had done it. Sometimes he wouldn't do it. He's 9 years old. He has kind of a grimace all the time, kind of a fake grin, I think because he knew he was supposed to be happy and he was not happy at all. And so he was like this all the time. And she just thought, what is going on? Sometimes she'd go into his room at night and he'd be on the floor and she'd say, what are you doing on the floor? And he'd say, I don't deserve to be in a bed. She thought, what is happening? One day she paid a surprise visit to his school, only to find his teacher berating him for being pathetic because she couldn't get any cooperation or anything out of him. And his mom took him out of school and tried to do homeschool with him, and that didn't work either. She didn't know what to do. She took him to see a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and she was told that he was clinically depressed at 9 years old, but that nothing could really be done because he wouldn't admit that he was depressed, and that was first thing they felt needed to happen. So she brought him in to see Jean and I, and we tested him and found he had a heart wall. And his heart wall was made up of emotions that had become trapped in his body because of different tragedies that had happened to their family and extended family. We cleared those, got to the very last emotion. And here's what created that first emotion. He was with his family. They were at a lake. It was a family reunion. He was there, and he had a little cousin that was there, another little boy, 5 years old, same age as him. They were on a dock, and his big sister, who was 12 years old, was trying to teach this little cousin of theirs how to swim. There was no adult supervision around, and this little boy disappeared underneath the dock. And it was about 45 minutes later that the divers recovered his body and pulled his body out from underneath the dock, and he was blue and, of course, long dead. The overwhelming guilt that his sister was feeling. How many of you have ever been a babysitter? Raise your hand. I mean, imagine how awful that would be to have something like that happen. The overwhelming guilt that she was feeling was so powerful, it became absorbed into his body and immediately formed into a wall of energy around his heart. Because otherwise his heart was breaking for her and also for this little cousin that was his best friend that was now gone. So we cleared that last emotion, the heart wall was gone, and his mom took him home. And for the next couple of days he was just kind of lying around lethargic, and she was thinking, well, it doesn't look like that really worked either. But on the morning of the third day after we worked on him, he got himself up, got himself ready to go to school, came downstairs with his lunchbox and said, Mom, I can go back to school now. I'm happy, that's what he said. And he went back to school, all his learning disabilities were gone. He went into the program for advanced kids because he's doing so well. And she told us that if she had not been open to something so different, that he would not have survived because he was so depressed already at only 9 years old. Now, the worst cases of depression we have seen, and we've seen cases of suicidal depression turn around literally in a matter of days when the heart wall is taken down. Raise your hand if you think it might be possible that you might have a wall around your heart that you don't know about. Because you don't know about this. It's a subconscious creation. Your subconscious mind puts up this wall in an effort to protect you, and then you get to live the rest of your life with your heart in a bunker, basically. Okay? It makes sense when it happens, when the bombs are falling, you're going through the divorce, you're being bullied, difficult work situation, whatever it is, that wall gets put up, and there it remains. Now, one of the beautiful things that happens when you begin to get rid of this wall and you begin to take down these layers and open up your heart again is that your ability to love unconditionally increases. Your ability to love others increases. And you know, when people die and they go to the other side and they come back to tell the story, they'll often have a life review. But you know, it's interesting because they're never ever asked how much money they made, or how big of a house they lived in, or how fancy of a car they drove. Never. None of that. The most important question people seem to be asked is, how big is your capacity to love others? How developed is your capacity to love? You know, in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul talked about this. He said, although I have every gift, if I can move mountains with my faith, and I have all knowledge, and I can do all these great things, if I don't have the ability to love others unconditionally, then I am nothing. Think about that. Love is the answer to everything. Unconditional love is the answer to everything. And part of the reason for that is because it gets rid of your resistance, right? We're in a state of resistance, a lot of us, a lot of the time. Most of the world is in a state of resistance to one thing or another. When you love unconditionally, that resistance fades away. And what replaces it is acceptance, right? A man recently, I read something where this man, I can't remember his name, talked about how in the emergency room, when people die and their heartbeat stops and they flatline, in the movies, they just hit them with the paddles, you know, clear, boom, and they come back. And he said only about 15% of the time is that true. 85% of the time, those people who flatline, they're not coming back. He said one day in the emergency room, they brought 3 different people back, which was amazing. What was even more amazing was what they said. All 3 of them essentially said, first of all, why did you bring me back? Nobody ever wants to come back here. Welcome to hell, by the way. No one ever wants to come back here. Why did you bring me back? And then they also said something really fascinating. They said that for the first time, when they got to the other side, they felt totally accepted. They felt total acceptance. Total acceptance is the fruit of what? It's the fruit of unconditional love. Now, we all have emotional baggage. That's what the Emotion Code book is about. If you think about your own being, okay, for the most part, when we come into this world, we have a clear, clean, pristine energy field. But as time goes on, we begin adding baggage. So you can think of your energy being as being kind of like a hot air balloon, right? With lots of sandbags, weight holding you down to the earth. As you start to release that emotional baggage, as you start to open your heart, what happens is, pretty soon you start to gain some buoyancy. Pretty soon that hot air balloon of yours is no longer anchored to the low vibrations of the earth. It's beginning to rise. It's not unusual at all for people to say that when their heart wall was removed, or when a trapped emotion was removed somewhere, some other part of their body, that they actually feel physically lighter. Not unusual. And that's one of the most beautiful aspects of this work, getting rid of that wall that's around your heart. People often report to us that for the first time in their life, when that wall was taken down, they could feel joy. Some report that they knew what it was like to feel love for the first time. Sometimes people report that for the first time in their whole life, they could feel the love of the Creator for them. You know, I think eventually physics may find that the dark matter that fills the universe, that's influencing everything and keeping all these planets in their orbits and so on, is actually nothing less than the perfect unconditional love that the Creator has for us. It keeps our hearts beating, it keeps our bodies working, it's helping us create millions of new cells every minute, and keeping the galaxies and the planets in all their orbits. You know, it's a fascinating thing they recently found that the estimate of grains of sand on Earth is 10 to the 21st, or 1 sextillion. There's 1 sextillion grains of sand on Earth, roughly. Do you know how many stars there are in the universe? Now that they've been able to look further out, the estimate is 200 sextillion stars in the universe. Isn't that amazing? Way more, 200 times more than the grains of sand in all the world. I want to share an experience with you about unconditional love. When I was a young man, I had a profound spiritual experience. And I learned that God, or we might refer to that God as source energy or creator, higher power, however you might refer to it, is very, very real. And the love that is had for us is beyond our ability to comprehend. Years ago, when we were raising our kids, we lived near Disneyland in California. And one day I took some of the older kids to Disneyland, and I got them in line for a ride, and I was taking a walk. And as I was walking along, I was noticing all these people, tall and short, skinny and large, different colors and shapes, and everything else. And I was thinking to myself, you know, I'm sure these are all really nice people, but these people don't really have any meaning for me. I don't really love these people. And I thought, I wonder what it's like for our Father in heaven, because we read that He loves all of us. So I said a prayer, and I said, Father in heaven, help me to understand what it's like for you, because you love all these people and I don't really love these people. What's that like? I didn't really get an answer, so I just kind of mentally shrugged my shoulders and continued with my day. When I got home, our younger boys were really, really upset because I didn't take them to Disneyland. Raise your hand if you've ever been harassed by children. You relate to this? And they were really upset with me. I didn't take them. They couldn't believe I wouldn't take them to Disneyland. So finally, after being harangued and harassed, I finally agreed I would take them. So the following Saturday, I'm at Disneyland. It was the last place in the world I really wanted to go. I got them in line for a ride, and I went for a walk. And as I'm walking over this bridge, I start having the same thoughts that I was having the week before. And I'm looking at all these different people and thinking, gee, I wonder what it's like for our Father in heaven. And in that moment, suddenly that prayer that I had offered the week before was answered. And I'll try to describe to you what happened. Suddenly, instantly, I was filled with this absolute, overwhelming, unconditional love for all of these people on this bridge that I didn't know. It's kind of impossible to describe this. I looked off to my right, and there was a ride with about 200 people in line. And I was filled with this absolute, overwhelming, unconditional love for all of those people in that line. And this was so far outside of my experience and outside of my box that I instantly panicked. I felt a sense of panic, and instantly it was over. That experience was over. But I had that experience. And I can tell you for an absolute fact that somebody up there loves you and loves all of us. And if we could comprehend the love that fills the universe, it would blow our minds. And I think that one of the beautiful things about getting rid of that heart wall and getting rid of our emotional baggage is that we begin to be able to be aware of that love that fills the universe. This world is changing. It is in a state of transformation right now. This world is in labor, trying to give birth to this new world that is coming. It's going to be a world that is going to be operated on the basis of unconditional love. That is where we are going, and I will see you all there. Thanks. Brackley Nelson. Thank you so much. I want to give this hands the next thing up, Ross.
Okay, thank you. Born in front of the ocean, and that's what probably changed my life forever. Since I can remember, I've been a dreamer. And I've always listened to the voice of my heart. Because since I was a kid, I felt different to many people. And of course, you always have the pressure of society. But in my case, thanks to the ocean, the dolphins, the whales, and a wonderful mother with two hearts, because she had so much love to give, and she couldn't have only one heart, I started a beautiful journey. The journey of life. Since the beginning, I questioned everything. Because when I was small, they would tell me, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, be careful, you may fall, you're gonna get burned. So many things that I couldn't understand. Because in my case, because of the world I lived when I was small, surrounded by the ocean, and all these wonderful dolphins, whales, you name it, all these wonderful animals, I didn't know what fear was. And and it's amazing. Life goes just like this. I've realized that in order to fulfill our dreams and to find the true purpose of our life, the thing that will make your journey difficult more than anything else is the fear of fear itself. Let me explain what I'm trying to say. We live in a society sometimes in which there are so many rules, and of course, there's nothing wrong with the rules, because that's a way to live in a civilized way. But what happens if your heart whispers to yourself, to your soul, and to your mind that maybe your path through this world is different? What happens if you start to realize that what the majority likes is not necessarily what you like? So I was lucky enough to take a decision when I was very young. I said, I only live once. This life that the universe gave me is the most beautiful gift that I could receive. But what I do with my life will be the most beautiful gift I can give to the universe. And I found 2 ways of doing it. 3 ways. First, being totally sincere to myself of who I was. Learning that it's always better to give rather than to get. And the most important thing, the way I see it, is that you have to find your purpose in life. We didn't came to this world just to, of course, we have to have a wonderful time, a good time, enjoy it. But we all know that life sometimes throws rocks to our life and we get hurt. I can tell you after 60 years, and trust me, 60 years just go like this, that it's so important to realize that the bad moments of life are opportunities to grow. Because if life has taught me something, it's that nothing lasts forever. When you're in the middle of a storm and you feel that there's no way out, sooner or later, the sun will come up again, and you will be able to fulfill that life with purpose, love, kindness, humanity, and unconditional love. But my story, as I said, starts in the ocean. I'm a keen surfer. I've surfed, I've traveled the world so many times in search of the perfect wave. And that love of the ocean, that love of gliding in a wall of water with no witness but myself, in beautiful sunsets, made me realize that there is much more to life than what meets the eye. Because sometimes some things are meant to be felt, not to be seen. And by following my dreams and surfing all these places around the world, and of course also diving, surrounded by, as I said before, by whales, by dolphins, by manta rays, and all these amazing creatures, I learned so many things. Because surfing was my dream, to surf the world. But I never thought that I would encounter so many wonderful moments that would teach me so many things in life. You see, when you leave your comfort zone, and I was born in a Western country, you start to go to all these places because you want to surf. But the people you start to meet, the cultures you start to meet, the traditions you start to meet, you start to realize that they are not the same as the ones you were taught. So who owns the truth? I guess we all own the truth. And this made me realize also that traditions can be different in different places. But one thing that I've learned is that the principles of a well-lived life are the same everywhere. So, what I'm trying to say is that if we learn to respect the traditions of others while keeping our own principles, which are universal, we can make of the world a better place and really communicate with people who were born with different ideas and different ways of living. The other thing that life taught me is that if you start to take out of your vocabulary words like resentment, rage, envy, and so many other things that make our journey more difficult, suddenly you feel that you don't have a backpack behind your back. And the journey of life gets so much wonderful. And then your dreams start to appear. I love Steve Jobs. He was an amazing person. And what he once said, always follow the dots. Always see the signs that life places in front of you. And it's so true. But in order to do that, you have to lose fear of fearing itself. I'll give you an example. I've swum with sharks all around the world. But if I would stay in my comfort zone and say, wow, the movie Shark, you know, sharks are dangerous, sharks will kill you, sharks will bite you. But when you are able to break that crystal wall and do it and be with them, you start to realize that these animals that they told us that they were so dangerous are not alone. People think that when you're in the water with dangerous animals, they will come and bite you. And it's totally the opposite. They are more scared than us. And as long as you do the right thing and give them their space, everything will be fine. But the most important thing for oneself is that instead of seeing something through TV or a screen made of glass, you experience a moment. And that's what I've tried to do all my life. Why not? Why should I believe everything that they tell me when step by step, by losing my fear of fear itself, life is proving to be that there are no limits. There are no limits at all. Of course, respecting nature, and of course, respecting all human beings. You see, what I'm saying right now, there's only one way I can talk. And the only way I can talk is through the voice of my heart. Some time ago, well, 30 years ago, I wrote a book called Der Traum Delphi, the Dolphin. And I was surfing in Portugal after quitting a wonderful position in Australia. I was the CEO of a multinational company. And of course, at that time, I had all my, what I call my material choice. Being a CEO of a company, you have to dress in some way, you have to use an expensive watch, you have to use an expensive tie, you have a beautiful car, and you have a beautiful house, first class everywhere. And maybe that's good for some, and I respect it. But in my personal case, I wanted to see the world. The most important thing in my life is my time to do the things I love to do. And by doing so, discovering who I truly am, and finally finding the true purpose of my life. And I want to tell you a little story so you can see how things can change from one moment to the other. Again, when you are able to break that crystal wall and don't be afraid of fear itself. As I said, I was working in this company in Australia, and it came to a point that I wasn't working to live anymore. I was really living to work. And that took all the most amazing things of my life that made me a dreamer. I didn't have the time to do the things I loved. I didn't have the space because I was like captured in a business world. Again, nothing wrong with that. It just depends who you are. So I said to myself, and I will never forget it, I was in a hotel in Singapore, closing a very big deal for my company. And for the first time in my life, I had a panic attack. Panic attacks are definitely a sign that you're not living the life you are meant to live. Because it's a way for your mind, your soul, and your heart to tell you, listen, be careful. Because you are not being the person that came to this world to be true to itself. So, to make a long story short, I had a panic attack, and I said, that's it. I went running to the business office of that building, and I will never forget that while I was running, I listened to the voice of my heart, and the voice of my heart told me, Sergio, either you quit right now and live the life to live the life you came to this world to live. And if you don't do it, you will probably be doing the same for the rest of your life. And you're still young, but there's something that nobody tells you. When you get older, sooner or later, you will have to face the mirror of your life, of what you did, what you achieved, and what if you really lived the life that you wanted. And trust me, that will be the best or the worst day of your life.
Wow, what an experience. Find Your Flow, Europe's biggest spiritual festival, really left me inspired. Being surrounded by so much energy, positivity and openness reminded me how powerful it is to slow down, connect and live in the moment. I'm leaving with a full heart, new insights and fresh motivation. Thanks for coming along with me. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, stay in your flow.